The 3 T's are travel, trekking, and trail running. So there's a myth that you have to be rich to travel. That as human beings, we all laugh when we're happy, we all cry when we're sad. We all want our children to have better lives than what we've had, and this is universal. And I grew up with good values. I was taught to respect my elders. You know, I was taught to think of others. I was taught to respect the environment.
Hello everyone, greetings from G. Krishnan and welcome to my YouTube channel G. Krish TV. As you know, irrespective of age, anyone, even when you are old, we always wish to travel within India, outside India, whether to west or to the east, we will be happy to travel. In this contest, today we have a guest by name Miss Dawn, who hails from Canada, called the Great White North. She is residing in India since 2015 and in Chennai from 2018. So I welcome Miss Dawn. Since you're in India, I should say Namaste, and you're residing in Chennai, Vanakkam.
Vanakkam. So thank you for having me here. And as you mentioned, I have been in Chennai since 2018. I'm quite settled here. It's home. I am a person who's very fond of traveling, of wandering, and especially since the COVID times, I've stopped all my international travel. But in a way, it's been a blessing because it's allowed me to really just explore the surroundings around Chennai and the rest of Tamil Nadu. And what a beautiful place this is.
From your profile, I find that you started traveling from the age of 17,
Yes.
not even adult. Did your parents allow you to travel? And I heard that the first continent you went is Africa.
Yes. So at the very young age of 17, I traveled to Central African Republic. My parents didn't do any international traveling, but they were very free-spirited people. And as children, we were always on our Canadian adventures. They were never big budget adventures. It was all of 3 kids loaded in a car and going somewhere extraordinary. I grew up in the north, so it was a bit of an extreme climate, and you know, the wilderness was my playground. So I was used to being outside and trekking and adventuring. That's how I grew up. It was hard for my parents to let me go, but I was quite determined as a young person, and they did encourage me in the end, as long as they knew that I was safe. And I went to Central African Republic because I wanted to go somewhere far, you know, at that age, as far as you could go. And at that time, that was the most underdeveloped country in all of Africa. But actually, we had a friend of a friend there. So I had someone to pick me up at the airport, to welcome me there. I was actually traveling with a schoolmate, so I had a friend with me. And we spent a year in Central African Republic. I learned to speak the local language, Sango, and I felt, by the time I left, very much at home and very integrated into the culture there.
Okay, it sounds very nice, madam, to hear that you travel all the way to Africa. Where does the money come from?
Yes.
So because everyone wishes to travel, but
Yes.
we see the purse, no, to go a different continent, we require money. How do you manage these expenses?
Yes, so my first trip, my dear father sponsored that trip.
Oh, I see.
So my
Lovely father you
my
had.
parents paid for the trip. But you know, after that, you know, there's a myth that you have to be a full-time traveler to enjoy traveling. And what I've done in my lifetime, because after that first travel experience, I didn't want to give up traveling. I wanted to keep going. And so I married very young. I had children very young, but I brought my children along with me, and I got jobs overseas. So I was 10 years in Europe. So Europe became this sort of springboard for travel. And then wherever I ended up in the world, that's where I would travel from. And very often I did volunteer work as well. So I've done volunteer work in Kosovo, in Moldova, in Congo, in Central African Republic, in Romania, in many places. So doing that kind of service work also allows you to see other countries, and in a much more real context than just being a tourist.
Miss Dawn, you have visited 4 continents, 30 countries right from the age of 17. I think it is 30 years down the line. What is your suggestion for a medium budget traveler who, like Miss Dawn, wishes to travel all these 4 continents or more than 30 countries? How do you manage the finance? Can you elaborate on that?
Good question. So there's a myth that you have to be rich to travel, and it's not at all true. I think the most important thing is to be well organized. If you can plan in advance, you can find very good deals online. And I stick very strictly to a budget. I actually use a budgeting app on my phone. Every time I spend even 1 cent, 1 rupee, one whatever it is, I put that into the app, and I always stay within my budget quite strictly. So I know how much I have for accommodation, how much I have for food, and after time, you get to know where you can book, especially online apps, which ones are the best, where you can find the best deals. And some countries, it's actually cheaper to call the hotel and book directly through them.
Okay.
Other countries, you can actually get better deals through an app and not calling the hotel. And I stay at guest houses, I stay at bungalows on the beach, I stay in villages up in the mountains. I don't need fancy accommodation. And I find that if you budget and you're in, say, maybe lower budget places for a while, then at the end of the trip, I like to splurge and stay somewhere a little bit nicer for a few days.
Okay, you stay overnight in different locations. If you don't have any contacts, the places you go, how do you feel about the security? I mean, generally, as anyone, especially for a woman.
Yeah, as a female traveler, you do need to be careful, but I think it's also another myth that it's dangerous for women to travel alone. I have a set of rules that I follow. I try my best not to arrive somewhere unknown at night. I like to arrive in the morning. I think it's much safer that way. And, you know, I'm very careful. If I don't feel good, if I walk into my accommodation and I have a bad feeling, I don't feel it's safe, I have no concerns walking out and going somewhere else. So if there's not a good feel, if the people there aren't feeling right, I will leave. So that's another one as well. And I also read reviews from other female travelers.
Okay.
I see what their experience has been. And I've actually never had bad experiences. I don't drink, I don't party. I think for women, these sort of party travelers, if you're intoxicated and it's at night, that's usually when most of the trouble happens. I don't drink alcohol, I don't do drugs, I don't do any of that. So for me, I think I keep myself pretty safe. My party time is 5 in the morning walking in the mountains.
Okay.
I'll go to bed at 8 o'clock at night. I'm fine with that.
Okay, very nice to hear that. Now tell me, you enjoy your life right from the age of 17, and the past 30 years you are traveling different continents and more than 30 countries. What about your personal commitments, your obligation to your children, your spouse, your parents, and your close relatives?
Family is very important to me and always has been. And you know, I think the biggest sacrifice was leaving my parents. I have a very close relationship with my parents. My father has passed on now. My mother is still there. You know, online we stay in touch almost daily. And, you know, unfortunately at this point, I don't get to see her as much as I wish I could. My children, I actually raised them traveling. So I traveled with my children. They came along with me.
I see.
Now they're all grown, they're adults. My son has been married for 5 years, and they're at a stage in their life where they're exploring their own independence.
Okay.
Mom who, you know.
Like you, they're
Mom
also...
who. So now is my time that I get to enjoy and do more of the type of traveling that I didn't do when I had more of those family commitments. And now I can focus on going up in the hills and walking in the mountains. And I did a lot of that with my children too, but now I'm a lot more free.
How many countries your children have traveled now?
Oh my gosh, I don't know.
Approximately? They're
each different.
Okay.
But
they're coming in that track of
yeah,
the mother.
a lot. So my youngest daughter, actually, before she left home, before my nest was completely empty, I took a 1-year sabbatical from work. So I saved all my money. And then I had planned for this, and we did a 1-year backpacking trip through Southeast Asia. And so we started in India, then we went to Nepal, and then Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, and Philippines. So it was a really wonderful trip, and I think it was a great foundation for her life as an independent woman.
Okay. Madam, there is a reference that you went to Central Africa for first time going out of your nest from Canada to a different continent. How was that experience?
It was transformational, you know, really life-changing. I was so young and so naive and so impressionable, and it had a profound effect on me. You know, I traveled by means of traffic. So traffic, I'm sure you've seen it here in India too, it's a transport truck. So they load it very high with goods, and it goes from village to village. So any town or village I was in, I would just go to the marketplace and I would ask, how do I get to this next village? And they would point me to whatever transport truck was going. I would climb up on top of all of the cargo, hold on for dear life, and head to the next village. And I went to
without paying anything?
Yeah, of course you pay something. You pay something small.
Okay.
And then, yeah. So it was a very good experience because I got to meet people in very remote places. And I learned something about myself, that because I was also raised in a remote place, that I feel very much at home in rural areas. And that, you know, in Canada, we're very fascinated by the term unity and diversity. That we love to, you know, try the food, let me try your samosa, let me hear your drums, let me think. And we love this diversity. But I think what is more important is actually what brings us together, is our oneness. That as human beings, we all laugh when we're happy, we all cry when we're sad, we all want our children to have better lives than what we've had. And this is universal. And I learned that at the young age of 17, that really folks are just folks wherever you go. And if you can travel with that mentality, the world is really yours and you can feel home anywhere you go.
Okay, I find some reference from the media which I read recently. Miss Dawn, I find something 3 T's, 4 continents and 30 years of travel, rather backpacking. Can you explain that 3 T's, 4 continents and backpacking?
The 3 T's are travel, trekking and trail running.
Trail running.
Yeah, so those are 3 of my hobbies. So travel, as you know, is just traveling from place to place. Trekking is getting a little bit more into the wilderness, up into the mountains, exploring nature, enjoying nature. And trail running is just another means of exploring nature, but maybe at a little faster pace. So that's what I've been doing wherever I go.
And in that case, what about the diet or the physical strength which is required for trekking? And do you focus on any special diet?
I try to eat healthy. You know, I don't eat a lot of junk food or processed food. I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. I do eat fish and chicken and egg. I don't eat beef or pork. And I think more than anything, your health is very connected to your mindset. And being able to adjust to new climates, being able to feel healthy and fit has to do with your mindset. And if you're at peace with yourself, then your body is going to be healthy.
You were mentioning that you were born and brought up in northern Canada. Can you explain the area, the climate and the places one wish to travel and see?
Yeah, so I was raised in Yukon, which is one of the northern territories in Canada. It's beside Alaska, so the Canadian side of it. So it was extreme climate. So the coldest temperature that I've personally experienced is minus 64 Celsius.
Minus 64 Fahrenheit.
So your Celsius.
Oh.
So your freezer in your home is minus 20. So minus 64 is quite cold. This is not usual, this is extreme. So most winters got between minus 20, minus 40 were normal winter temperatures. But not only is it the temperatures, it also has to do with the amount of daylight. Because you're so far north, in the summer, you have 24 hours daylight. So you'll see little kids running around playing outside at 11 at night, 12 at night.
Parents will have a problem.
My mom used to put aluminum foil on our windows so that we could sleep, so the sunlight wouldn't come in at night. And then winter is the opposite. Winter is very dark. And so where I lived, we actually got about 2 hours of daylight in the mid of winter. Just a few hours north of me, they would go a couple months without seeing daylight at all. And they even have the Coming of the Sun festival. So I know people think this is extreme, but when you grow up there, it's home, it's normal. And I grew up in a community that was population 200 people. 200
Near
people.
200 you mean?
Village.
Okay.
I grew up in a village. And so it was a very friendly, loving place. And I grew up with good values. I was taught to respect my elders. You know, I was taught to think of others. I was taught to respect the environment. And, you know, it was a very idealistic childhood. I didn't even see my first color TV until I was 6 years old. So my childhood was spent outside in the wilderness playing. And then in the winters, it was inside, cozied up in a cabin, telling the same stories over and over again.
I see. Okay, tell me, you have traveled so many countries and continents. If you are given an opportunity to travel again and again, which country you will choose? I think it's not an easy question to answer, but you can rank at least few countries.
It's a very difficult question to answer, but number one on my list is India.
Oh, I see.
I'm very happy in India. I would come here again and again and again.
Okay, very nice to hear
Definitely.
that.
After that, Myanmar for me was a wonderful experience. I was there just before COVID in January 2020. I spent a full month trekking there, and I found the people so lovely, so hospitable. I went to places where there were no hotels, there were no restaurants. I was up in the highlands, in the villages. I ate what people gave me, I slept on their floors, and I trekked through some of the most beautiful terrain I've been to. So Myanmar is definitely a revisit. Another country I love a lot is Thailand, and I go back and back. My favorite place in Thailand is an island called Koh Lant. It's in the south of Thailand, and it's just a beautiful, lazy island where you can relax on the beach, snorkel. There's a few small mountains you can go up and down. There's a national park there, but that's another favorite place I have.
That was a very interesting interview we had with Miss Dawn. She gave the finer details how one can travel across countries, and she also explained well how one can manage the finance. At the same time, they can take care of the profession. So the viewers of G Chris TV, I think, would be motivated to travel within India, outside India, and see the different variations of the world. In the part 2 of my interview, Miss Dawn will share her thoughts about a stay in India since 2015 and in Chennai from 2018. So hope to see you again in my part 2 interview with Miss Dawn, and please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel G Chris TV. Thank you.